Hi, Chris Leon here of GameDev. Let's talk today about intrinsic as opposed to extrinsic motivation, in particular, how there are certain guaranteed benefits of getting into game development, and then there's certain benefits that are not so guaranteed. In fact, maybe darn near like buying a lottery ticket. Now, what I mean by intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, these are really fancier words for internal and external, is simply the distinction between there's reasons we do things for our own purposes, in terms of we find it rewarding, we find it satisfying, we feel good about ourselves when we do them. Those are intrinsic. And then there's extrinsic, where there's some outside thing baiting us. Might be an award, might be fame, might be money, might be food, right? Whatever it might be. There's some sort of external thing, some string being pulled to externally or extrinsically yank us towards doing something. Now, the reason I say guaranteed benefits is that part of this distinction is often a case of intrinsic stuff is basically darn near guaranteed because they're things that result from things that are in our control as individuals, right? And it's part of why, exactly why, in many cases people feel good about things like training for a marathon, learning a martial art, learning just new skills in general. It's things that we feel ourselves developing, we feel ourselves growing, we feel ourselves sort of expanding our horizons of what as people our minds can do and our bodies can do. And those are things that are intrinsic in terms of what's driving us. Extrinsic motivations, on the other hand, are things like I'm counting on my game being at the top of the store, or I need to win awards at festivals. Now, that said, recognition actually falls in this fuzzy space in the middle of sometimes recognition or aspects of it are really intrinsic. It's where I want to feel good about how I appear to my peers. Can be a form of intrinsic motivation. What makes it extrinsic is more so when the reason I'm doing this is to try to get that trophy. It's obviously a little more on the external side of the spectrum. And the extrinsic stuff always involves factors that are, part of the name, outside of our control. They're external to us. It has to do with the whims of millions of potential customers, or it has to do with the decisions of dozens of judges who we don't know, right? They're things that really might work out, might not, but unlike intrinsic stuff, are definitely not guaranteed. And so, especially when you're learning, when you're early on in any kind of progression of learning something, and game development certainly being no exception to this, and maybe an extreme illustration of this, it's very, very valuable to focus first and foremost on those intrinsic rewards, because then you're getting something for sure out of it. When you're a total beginner, the odds of simultaneously winning competitions with that, the odds of simultaneously having it be a highly lucrative endeavor are incredibly low, or even a career-affecting thing. Now, the longer you've done it, the more experience you've built up, the more realistic it begins to be to start to look at those opportunities and to then sort of make a migration from purely intrinsic motivation early on towards increasingly pushing yourself to new and higher levels through the competitive elements that come from extrinsic motivation. But when people get into it immediately based on those extrinsic motivations of wanting to win event prizes, of wanting to get famous from it, or wanting to earn high dollar from it, etc. Those are things which inherently are, that's a tightly contested space against more experienced people, tends to not go well for total beginners, and then just takes a huge morale hit because they've allowed the decision of whether or not they're being successful at it to be driven and decided by something outside their control. When instead we focus on what's going to make us feel good because we're doing it and we're improving at it and we've made up our minds and we're getting ourselves to do the things that we mean to be doing, that's intrinsic. And that's something which is, like I say, it's a guaranteed thing. It's just like if someone wants to, work out, right, to feel better about themselves, and they consistently get themselves to go to that gym, that's feeling the intrinsic reward of having made a plan and got themselves to do it. It's the same thing why with karate. I mean, even though, there's karate tournaments and there's karate demonstrations or whatever, certainly a lot of the benefits that people tout in terms of like why you should go to karate are about self-discipline, are about willpower, are about having a sense of control, about clarity of mind. There are these other things that are much more intrinsic that are a given that if you're practicing this discipline, you will have those gains internally, right? There's not necessarily the same promise there if you're also going to get first in the competition or you're going to beat someone up in a fight. I'm sure most people who take karate probably, hopefully, never wind up in a fight, but there's still intrinsic benefits regardless. And in the same way, here in 2016, there are so many more people than ever in history, making video games, the vast majority of whom will probably not do so commercially. Some will turn out great. Many will not, and it's still fine. It's still a valid, wonderful thing as long as what they're trying to get from it is those intrinsic rewards. They're going to get them because that is completely in their control as a simple matter of, are they doing it? Are they getting the practice they want to do? Are they improving the skills that they want to feel good about improving at? Are they getting their own ideas? Are they having creative control over what they build? Are they challenging themselves in what they're doing? Those are all intrinsic, internal things. And if that's what's motivating you, you're on a great track as a beginner because it's going to help stick you through it, through the tough times of when, you might release something and not get a lot of players with it. You might release something or submit it to a festival and either not hear back feedback or not get very encouraging or positive feedback back. Those are all things that happen on the extrinsic basis. And those can be nice as long as they're not crowding it out. This also connects a little bit to game player experiences. It's actually part of why some of our older generation, old doesn't mean that old in video game history, but it's part of why when achievements were new and trophies were new in games, so you had some skeptics from, say, my generation of players who felt like, what? You should explore the map because it feels good to explore the map. You should be intrinsically rewarded to be thorough. You should be intrinsically rewarded to be a completionist. As opposed to, I got to get that last, I need the trophies. I need to explore in order to get the run around trophy. I need to, do all the unlocks or whatever to get the unlocked trophy, as opposed to just feel good about having unlocked it or done the good stunt or whatever. But that, at this point, that's kind of, I think, a silly distinction for us to worry about. But it is to say that, in anything in our life, whether it's games, whether it's work, whether it's game development, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation are powerful concepts to hang on to. And in particular, again, to focus that when you're a beginner, intrinsic, I think, is the best place to keep your focus. Of when you're making games, are you learning new skills? Are you improving from where you were yesterday? Are you getting to express the ideas you want to express? Are you building? Can you see yourself making progress towards what you want to be able to do and how you want to be able to do it? And if so, that's great. And part of why this is important too is that when you're doing that, then you don't make the same kind of calculations of, if you think you're doing it for extrinsic rewards, it can be very easy to start thinking in terms of spending a bunch of money hoping to make that money back from the extrinsic reward, or expecting to, right? And that's what I mean by expensive lottery ticket in that kind of case. But anyway, I think I probably got the point across. I don't need to keep repeating myself. Chris DeLeon here for GameKedo. That's GAMKEDO. Thank you for tuning in. Keep making video games. Look forward to playing the games future you're going to make.